This book is the second one in the series. The first one was called Empire V, and in the beginning of this one there are 12 little chapters that outline all the main aspects of the vampire world. I decided to illustrate them in a more simplistic manner because there are 12 of them, and the amount of text that accompanies them is sometimes just a few lines. So for that, I've translated all the text that accompanies these chapters, and it's narrated over the illustrations. So if this is that first illustration I've already done for the book, has colour in it and it's quite large, these 12 illustrations are going to be just a simple one-page illustration done just in black and white. So in this video I'll show the process of creating them and also narrate the text that accompanies them. In its essence, a vampire is a creature of dual nature, akin to a rider on horseback. In the very centre of its skull lives a so-called tongue, an ancient being of higher order that forms a symbiotic relationship with the host's brain. The intentions of this magical worm are usually perceived by us as our own desires. It also acts as an additional brain, which is why vampires are more intelligent than humans, and consequently much more unhappy. Our old Count Dracula has said, "One head is bad, and two heads are worse than one." The parallel with the rider on horseback is very accurate. Magical worm moves from one human body to the next, and is virtually immortal. Therefore, in some sense, the vampire is immortal too, as only his human form undergoes transformation. Of course, if the human form in question is yourself, someone else's immortality is of little consolation. You do, however, acquire certain preferential treatment in the afterlife. More of this later. In the ancient times, it was vampires who ruled people out in the open as Hellenic gods and other deities. Later, owing to various circumstances, we retreated into the shadows, but kept commanding the world affairs. As an ancient custom, would take on names of gods that people worship, but these are still horses' names. The magical worms within us bear no names. Vampires like to enter a state of nirvanic stupor, which results from increased blood flow to the head when we hang in the upside-down position from a special inversion bar. This is connected to the physiology of the magical worm, but we perceive the state as our own personal need and comfort. Without a doubt, we have numerous advantages over humans. We could be wiping our feet on the Forbes list if we possessed even an ounce of vanity, but we do not, as our needs lie elsewhere. There is nothing in it for us in screwing expensive prostitutes on ocean yachts, loading up on cocaine to cover up the smell of the impending doom. Any one of us would rather spend a few extra hours in a hamlet. This is what we call the private room which we used to invert. This is our service, duty, and our reward. We get a kick out of it, as simple as that. Chaldeans is another term, but it bears no relation to Hamlet. This is what we call our human servants, whom we use to rule the world. Another way to call them would be crypto elite, if it wasn't so ridiculous. It's boring to talk about them, you already understand who they are without me lecturing you. And yes, you see plenty of them every day. That is, if you watch television. Blood libel, or as it is also known blood slander, is a centuries-old accusation of a mortal sin that we commit by allegedly drinking human blood. All the generations of vampires do not say this word out loud, instead using the term red liquid, which in the recent years has become antiquated and slowly replaced by the abbreviation DNA, more so in the US. To be fair, this misconception is perpetrated not by pulp fiction novelists, but by ourselves. Moreover, all the daft films, books, and emo franchises about vampires are financed and distributed by us. This concealment behind crude mythologisms and primitive folklore imagery that no adult will ever believe in is intentional. It makes us completely invisible to the human society. We find it preferable to be wrongly accused of the crude wrongdoing, rather than being rightfully exposed for a sophisticated deception, of which I will talk later. After all, we do use the red liquid, just not as a food source. See also Black Curtain. Pelevin uses the word mythologem in Russian text, and this term traces back to this publication from 1941, where mythologem, which is a Greek word, refers to tales already well known but not unamenable to further reshaping.